Ladies and gentlemen, and another major win in the crackdown against fraud for the Trump administration, this story is almost impossible to make up. One of the most prominent former executives at the Southern Poverty Law Center, a woman who spent years warning Congress and lawmakers about extremist groups, has now been arrested and federally indicted as prosecutors expand an alleged multi-million-dollar fraud and money laundering scheme that involved SPLC donor money. And wait till you hear everything this former executive was doing to cover her tracks and fan the flames of hate to her benefit. And so as always, smash that thumbs up button if you do enjoy the content. That's the best way to let me know. For more, subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it right here.
And the SPLC hid from donors that some of their money funded violence, racism, extremist activities. Byrick's attorney says the case is without merit. Here's Attorney General Todd Blanche.
There is a new indictment that includes the former CFO of SPLC. As alleged in the indictment, this individual participated in the scheme. As alleged, I believe she was part of the effort to open bank accounts in completely fictitious companies' names and make payments to individuals for reasons that were not accurate as described.
Okay, so let me go and slow this down and explain exactly what prosecutors are alleging here, because there are a lot of moving parts, ladies and gentlemen. And so first, we got the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's what is at the center of this as far as things go. They built their reputation and raised millions of dollars telling donors that it was fighting against violent extremists and white supremacist organizations. Now federal prosecutors are alleging that behind the scenes, the SPLC was secretly routing more than $4 million in donated money to individuals who were associated with those extremist groups. And at the center of this, who they're targeting now, is a woman by the name of Heidi Byrick. And so let me bring this up. And so take a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody is talking about what Heidi Byrick actually built for 20 years before the DOJ showed up. She joined the SPLC in 1999. By 2012, she ran the Intelligence Project, the Hate Map, the annual hate group counts, the numbers every reporter and law enforcement agency treated as gospel. Hate group counts under her watch, roughly 600 to 1,200. Donor money allegedly funneled, 4.2 million. Time frame of the scheme, 2007 to 2023, 16 years. Fictitious company bank accounts opened to hide where the money went. False descriptions used on federal bank forms to disguise the real purpose. That's not intelligence gathering. That's a laundering operation wearing a nonprofit badge. And here's what nobody is explaining to you. This doesn't just implicate one employee. This implicates the entire fundraising model forever. The informant tied to the National Alliance allegedly received over $1 million. Byrick allegedly had a romantic relationship with the same informant. They shared a joint bank account allegedly that took in roughly $140K of the SPLC donor cash, and allegedly the KKK Imperial Wizard was reportedly among those getting paid. You can't make any of this up, ladies and gentlemen. And so here's some more on that. Check this out.
Former member of the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group that is accused of funding the same hate groups that it told and she told people they were fighting. In a new superseding indictment, Heidi Byrick, the one you saw there on your screen, the group's former chief financial officer, is now charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. According to the indictment, the SPLC hid from donors the fact that a portion of their donated funds was being secretly used to support extremist groups and to fund their violent, racist, and extremist activities. It goes on to explain how one employee, believed to be Byrick, was also in a romantic relationship with one of the paid informants. During this relationship, that employee and that informant shared a house and 2 bank accounts. Byrick's attorney claims the entire case is, a political ploy.
We think these charges are politically motivated. She has dedicated her life to fighting the KKK, neo-Nazi groups, extremists, and for all of that life's work, we're all safer. We're all better as a community. It is not just ironic, but terrible that for this work, she's been indicted indicted by the current Department of Justice.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, this woman, Heidi Beirich, she was on one hand saying that white supremacy is one of the worst things ever created by a man, but then allegedly on the other hand was sleeping with a white supremacist, one of the informants that is, and she funneled $1.2 million to hate groups allegedly. Take a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This was her back in 2020. She warned Congress about the spread of white supremacy online. And so just take a listen to what she was saying back then. Check this out.
Mass casualty attacks like we saw in El Paso and Pittsburgh and Poway, and the list could go on, and this is an international problem, is what I'm most concerned about. The white supremacists who have come to believe that they need to use terrorism, violence, to bring down systems of government, multicultural democracies basically, to stop a white genocide. That has motivated most of the big mass casualty attacks, and that motivation is not going to go away because demographics are shifting in much of the Western world, and that's what they view as a threat. And if we don't intercept how this propaganda is spread on mainstream platforms where it allows for recruiting, I'm just afraid that the next Christchurch could be around the corner anywhere, here or abroad. Their views, I think white supremacy is, one of the worst things mankind has come up with. Well, I can have a direct impact on these movements. And in the first year I was there, we did some very good work, myself and my colleagues, exposing anti-immigrant networks in the United States, some of which are still functioning today.
And that clip right there is exactly why this entire situation is getting so much attention, because she's not just some low-level employee, someone kind of playing in the background. She was someone who was getting called before Congress, warning them about the rise of violent and white supremacist groups online. And so quite the contradiction, obviously, when you have this individual who's saying this to Congress, but then behind closed doors, allegedly she's sleeping with an informant of one of these extremist hate groups, while also money is being funneled, laundered, and bank accounts that are looking to be hidden. And then, ladies and gentlemen, there's also this. Take a listen to this. If you recall, this ended up reaching Joe Biden when he was in office. And I want you to take a listen to this. Remember when the SPLC paying KKK informant story first broke? The liberal media and paid ex-influencers were in lockstep saying it's just like the FBI running informants. Yeah, turns out they weren't just cutting checks. They were keeping Klansmen on the payroll so they wouldn't leave the movement, reimbursing them for the wood and the fuel for cross burnings, buying the robes. And today we find out that the head of the department was literally shacking up with one of them and using donor money for their shared lifestyle, allegedly. And so the civil rights grift was bankrolling the very people they told you to fear. Take a listen to this.
Biden's old line becomes even more farcical.
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017. Extremists coming out of the woods, carrying torches, their veins bulging from their necks, carrying Nazi swastikas.
Veins bulging from their neck. Oh my, yeah, he was president. And no group made more money off Charlottesville than the Southern Poverty Law Center. In a federal indictment handed down in the spring, we learned that one of the SPLC's own informants helped plan the rally, which the SPLC then used to raise millions and, of course, smear conservatives. Now, remember, for years, the media treated the SPLC as the gold standard for exposing hate. What would we do without them? And it trashed everyone from traditional Catholics to Charlie Kirk to yours truly. And today, a new indictment of this woman, Heidi Beirich, the SPLC's former CFO and a self-appointed expert on right-wing extremism. She's now charged in a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme.
Let's go ahead and switch gears now and get into the Zohran Mamdani story. Now, Mamdani, he'd been losing steam, and the shine is starting to rub off a bit. You got these government-run grocery stores where you have a lot of business owners who are upset with him. I mean, that's a train wreck of a situation waiting to happen. The free child care is way over budget as far as how much he said is going to cost versus how much is actually going to run taxpayers year by year by year. And remember that whole free buses thing? Yeah, that's kind of on the back burner because he lied and he's not going to actually be able to do that now. He got bailed out by Kathy Hochul to be able to balance the budget, which is really just him getting bailed out from the state. But things are not going well for Mamdani right now. And listen to this. You got New York City Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani just got humiliated by his own police department. He demanded taxpayer-funded New York City police protect his wife during a trip to Syria and Lebanon. 2 level 4 do not travel countries full of terrorists. NYPD's response, a hard no. And so take a listen to this.
All the people, all the smiles, basking in his socialist glory. All the people, all the smiles, basking in his socialist glory. And the media profiles, oh my gosh, they were sickening. But now reality is setting in. First, a judge blocking his pied-à-terre tax, and now Mamdani is getting humiliated by the NYPD. He reportedly said his wife would have taxpayer-funded police protection when she traveled to Syria and Lebanon to visit family, but the NYPD said no, given that both countries are on the State Department's level 4 do not travel list.
I'm not going to have my members go over there. What am I going to do? Gear them up, 6 detectives with SWAT gear and run over to Syria?
Yeah.
That's not what we're going to do here.
God, love him. All right, well, Mamdani, he got the message.
There was a miscommunication. She hasn't yet taken this trip, and when she takes this trip, it will be without any NYPD detail.
Yeah, and so Mamdani is trying to sell you on the idea that this was just one big misunderstanding when the reality is this was him trying to pull a fast one and get the NYPD to protect his wife on this trip. Mind you, this is the same guy who ran an entire campaign on defunding the police. I mean, he pulled back, obviously, on that whole idea once elected and getting into office. But that's how he energized his base under the notion that he was about defunding the police. And what a coinky-dink. Now that he's in office, when it's to his benefit, I mean, he wants to use them to protect his wife. I mean, this is just another example of the champagne socialist lifestyle that these people expect while projecting and telling those who are willing to listen something very different.
That was just a miscommunication. Elites will always, always demand special treatment for their friends and their family, and of course themselves, and they'll toss you the crumbs. Here to discuss is Bruce Lakeman, New York gubernatorial candidate and Nassau County exec. Bruce, do you buy that for 1 minute? That it was just a miscommunication? This is like COVID, when Gavin Newsom was, out at the French Laundry and Pelosi was getting her hair done. Everyone else were locked down. It's the same deal every time.
Well, Zohran Mamdani only lies when his mouth is moving. He lied about free bus fares. Instead, commuters got a increase in their bus fares. He lies about a lot of different things. And look, I have no problem with the police protecting elected officials and their families, but you have to ask yourself, why is she going to 2 places that are filled with terrorists and putting our police officers in harm's way? What's the purpose of the visit? I guess she is comfortable with terrorists because that's why there's a do not travel from the State Department, because these places are dangerous, but maybe not to her.
It's very odd. And he's standing by his outrageous pied-à-terre tax. Watch this.
We continue to be confident in the importance of a tax on secondary homes worth more than $5 million, in the necessity of the $500 million it would raise towards making sure that our streets are safer, making sure that our schools are stronger, that our city is more affordable.
Bruce, if New York City gets the ruling, it's a temporary ruling, overturned, the wealthy, I mean, we're already seeing a big exodus from New York, but they're going to leave. I guess that's okay with them. I mean, they're ready for New York to just hollow out. I mean, I don't really get the end game here.
Well, it's not okay with me because these high net worth individuals, they contribute to the economy. They create economic activity, they create jobs, and they pay taxes. In just 4 years under Kathy Hochul and Zohran Mamdani, New York State has lost $11 billion in tax revenue from people who are high net worth individuals and corporations that have left our state. And who really gets hurt? The middle class, they have to pick up the tax burden, and the carpenter, the electrician, the plumber, the waiter, the waitress, the bartender, the dog walker, the florist shop, the dry cleaners, they all get hurt because they lose all that business. It's a terrible policy. It's a stupid policy, and it's class warfare. That's really what Zohran Mamdani is all about. He is the most divisive mayor that we've ever had in the city of New York, and Kathy is his willing participant in destroying the economy of our city and our state.
All we're watching right here is the full collapse of New York City in real time. That's what we're watching right now. And a part of that collapse is New York City and their sanctuary city policies where they protect illegal migrants. They're leaving out these courtrooms, and instead of actually communicating, violent criminals communicating with ICE, communicating with the federal government in order to remove these individuals, they're letting these individuals just right back out on the street. And so I got to show you this clip from Tom Homan, and he goes ballistic on what Kathy Hochul and Zohran Mamdani are doing. And take a listen to this.
Today, Mayor Mamdani, Governor Hochul, Attorney General Tish James joining forces, vowing to fight what they call ICE overreach across New York. Hochul announcing over $7 million in state funding for legal services for unaccompanied migrant children, while defending a new state law that will restrict local police departments from working with immigration enforcement. Wonder what Tom Homan thinks of this. Anyway, here he is. Our borders are. Tom Homan is with us. Well, that's what they're pledging, Tom. I know people have tried to make these threats against you before. Hasn't exactly worked out in their favor, has it?
No, it hasn't. And what they did today was a blatant, disgusting lie. And I'm tired of it. Now, they want to spend millions of dollars of New York taxpayers' money on defending migrant children because they said we abandoned them. No, we didn't abandon them. We just changed contracts. We have a contract in place right now that defends the children at a better rate than was being done in the past. There hasn't been one child at a hearing that hasn't been represented by a lawyer under this new contract. So don't say we're abandoning these children. The only people that abandon children are you, because you say you care about the safety of the children, you care about the safety of the communities. Well, since I've been border czar, I wrote these numbers down. Since I've been border czar, New York State has denied 14,000 detainers, over 14,000 detainers. Who are they? 6,800 illegal aliens with assault convictions, 800 convictions for child crimes. Don't tell me you're trying to protect children. You're releasing predators to the street every day across that state. You got 770 convictions for rape or other sex crimes. I'm sick of the lying. I'm sick of the distortion of the facts. President Trump's done more to make New York City and New York State safer than they have. Where were they when 500,000 children were separated from their families, put in the hands of criminal cartels, and smuggled across the border? Some of those children died. They lost track of 300,000 of them. It was the Trump administration who has found 151,000 of these children that the Biden administration wasn't even looking for. Some of these children are victims of sex trafficking. Some were victims of forced labor. I don't want to hear you talk about us abandoning children. It's you. You've abandoned the taxpayers in New York. Your communities are less safe because of all these criminals you release into the street every day. Children are less safe. President Trump is saving thousands of lives every month because we got a secure border. Fentanyl's not coming across to kill Americans at the rate it was. Sex trafficking, women and children have drastically declined. 4,000 aliens died making that journey under Biden. How many have died since? Zero. President Trump's saving thousands of lives. That includes thousands of lives in New York. You're welcome. You're welcome that ICE is taking thousands of criminals off your street.
And that's the part right there that doesn't get talked about enough. The risk to the individuals who are choosing to make that hike, who are choosing to risk their lives, risk their well-being, and are being manipulated, taken advantage of in the process, all for a shot to get to this country. And so they'll do anything as far as things go. They'll put themselves in positions where, yeah, they can be exploited. But people don't think about that. Instead, you'll have individuals, you watch these street interviews and things of that nature where they ask people these questions about illegal migration, and you hear idiots say, well, who's going to pick our strawberries and all this kind of stuff. It's like you're thinking about that, really, when it's literally people who are being trafficked. You don't want to think about that part. You don't want to think about the part of how individuals are taken advantage of and human trafficked women, girls, completely erased and dismissed, because that doesn't really affect the average person's life. They don't care. But you have these individuals who will talk about the price of fruit going up because now there aren't illegal migrants available to work out in fields. Utterly ridiculous. But let's go ahead and continue.
Wasn't it Governor Tim Walz? You had a guy convicted of raping and assaulting sexually a 10-year-old girl. Didn't he give this illegal immigrant a pardon? Is that the same state that Peggy Flanagan is in? Because Peggy Flanagan is running for the Senate. She won her race last night. Another DSA radical said during her victory speech last night, we need to rip ICE apart and stop them from terrorizing our communities. Is that a threat?
ICE, the ones that have arrested hundreds of thousands of criminal aliens and deporting them, making this country safer. ICE, the one that found 151,000 missing children. And we still got more to find. We won't stop. President Trump's committed to finding every one of them. But, it's Madami and Hochul. I got two words for you. Lake and Riley. You talk to the Open Borders group. You talk to the groups who want to abolish ICE. Have you ever talked to an Angel mom and dad? I doubt it. Have you ever talked to Lake and Riley's parents? Because their child was buried. You know why? Because the murderer was arrested in New York City by NYPD. They didn't call ICE. They released him. Then he went to Georgia and violently killed this young lady. If you don't want to talk to your parents and listen to the tape, almost 19 minutes of this little girl fighting for every breath, fighting to live. She didn't want to die. Listen to that tape and tell me how you justify sanctuary cities that release criminals to the streets of New York every single day. You can't justify it. Governor Hochul can't say she cares about the safety of communities and lock us out of the jail. She just signed legislation locking us out of the jails. How do you square that, saying you want to enforce laws against criminal aliens, but we're locking ICE out of the jail? It's disgusting what they're doing.
It really is. And
I'm upset. I'm upset. I'm just tired of it.
By the way, the Justice Department now is suing New York, Connecticut, and Vermont for giving in-state tuition to illegals. You're doing a great job, Tom Homan. Appreciate it. Setting the record straight for everybody. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out.
All right, and so there you have that. Now let me hear from you, ladies and gentlemen. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about the whole SPLC situation with Heidi Barrick. What should happen to her if she is found guilty, as far as with these allegations of her not only funneling money to these extremists and these hate groups that she says that she spent her career fighting against, and allegedly sleeping with one of the informants that was a part of this hate group. What do you think should happen to her as far as punishment and how it should be handled? Because that played a role in a lot of the chaos and the rhetoric that was being spewed just a few years ago. Let me know your thoughts on that. Drop your comments down below. Appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget, you enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.